Genesis chapter 36 consists of a list of Esau's offsprings, focusing primarily on the genealogy and the rulers of Edom, the nation that came from Esau. Esau was a twin brother to Jacob, who was also the son of Isaac. 3 of Esau's Canaanite wives are listed as the mothers of his many sons. Strangely, though, the names of these wives and their fathers are different from those reported in Genesis chapter 26, verses 34 and 28, verses 9, which implies that Esau had other wives, or that the names of these wives were actually changed along the way. Now, Esau was later on named Edom because he was born red all over, and he sold his birthright to his brother Jacob for a portion of red pottage. Esau was also known for being hairy. He had a lot of hair on his body. We can find those details in Genesis 27:11. And the word seir literally means shaggy. We will study that in verses 1 as we move along. Esau's wives, that is Adah, Oholibamah, and Basemath, bore to him 5 sons in the land of Canaan, including Eliphaz, the firstborn. But Jacob's family was the reverse. All but one of his sons were actually born outside of the promised land. It was only Benjamin that actually was born in the promised land. So most of these sons were born out, and then they simply came back to the promised land. Now, Esau's children were born in the land before he actually moved out of it. That is, before he moved his family and all that he owned, to the country hill that is in Seir. We'll find that in verses 2 to 5 years. This particular territory was taken from the Horites during a period of conquest. We'll find some details there in Deuteronomy 2:12. Now, their choices to move away from Jacob kind of fulfilled the prophecy about Esau breaking free from his brother's shadow that we saw in Genesis 27, verses 39 to 40. Now, this particular chapter, it emphasizes repeatedly that Esau is Edom. That is, the Edomite people and the nation all came from him. His grandsons are listed according to their fathers, and then listed again as the chiefs or leaders, or you could also say the tribal leaders in the land of Edom. His one of the key names in this segment we're gonna find is Amalek. His descendants became vicious enemies of Israel in Exodus 17:8. That is 17:8 and I think 16. Now we'll also find a bit of those details in Deuteronomy 25:17 to 19, but also we find some in 1 Samuel 15, that is 2 to 3. Another part of this list mentions the kings of the Horites. We'll find those in Deuteronomy 2:12, who occupied the land that is in Genesis 14:6, before Esau's clans sort of took over. Now, the text also notes that Edom had kings long before Israel because, Israel spent quite a number of years, almost 2 centuries, actually slightly more than 2 centuries in slavery. In Exodus, that is 12:40, before an era under a series of judges. We'll find that in Judges 12:25, rather than a king in Genesis 36, verses 9 to 39. Finally, the chapter lists another set of chiefs of Esau, perhaps naming the regions in Edom by the original heads of the clans who occupy the area, as we're going to see in verses 40 and verse 40 to 43. Over time, the nation of Edom grew hostile towards Israel in Numbers 20:14 to 21, and then also we'll find that hostility in 1 Samuel chapter 14, verses 7 and verses 37. We also find some bit of those details in 2 Kings 8:20. Now, this ultimately led to Edom's participation in Israel's defeat and exile and the judgment of God on the Edomites in Obadiah, chapter 1, verses 1 to 4, and then also chapter 10. So prophecy was fulfilled when the Nabateans overcame Seir and the nation of Edom was dissolved in Malachi 1, verses 2 to 5. The survivors at the time settled in Hebron, where Isaac had been living for quite some while, becoming known as the Edomians. Now, a notable member of this group was Herod. If you remember King Herod, that short guy, he was also called Herod the Great, who kind of tried to, kill Jesus Christ while he was still an infant. He ordered the murdering or the killing of all the young children at the time when Jesus had just been born. We can find that story about that in Matthew 2:16 to 18. So Herod was a member, or he comes from the lineage of Esau. Now, in AD 70, that is, the Edomites tried to join the Jewish rebellion against Rome and were entirely obliterated. Entirely. As a nation and even as a distinct people group, they became extinct. You can move around the world, you'll literally not find any Edomians. You won't find any descendants of Esau today. Amen. But you will only find the descendants of Jacob. That's it. That is basically the summary of Genesis chapter 36. Please find more details on our website. That is the full episode of this, Genesis 36. Our website is www.abdiministries.org. You can also find these on our YouTube channel. Simply search for handle Abdi Ministries. You can also find this on our podcast with what? With Spotify. Yep, with Spotify. You'll find the full episode. And don't forget to subscribe in case you haven't already. Otherwise,